From there, we get into astrology, especially astrotheology, is really, it seems to be where things are at.
In order to understand the Old Testament and the New Testament, you have to first understand where the book comes from, who wrote it. You have to understand it in the context of the time in which it was written. The Bible is nothing more, Old and New Testament, nothing more than a retelling of the most ancient story the world has ever known. And that's why the Bible's called the greatest story ever told. And a cursory understanding of ancient history will show that the greatest story ever told was the story of the zodiac. Astrology. The Bible is nothing more than the greatest astrological, astronomical story ever told. It is pure astrology based on the zodiac. No one's ever told you that before. No one would ever tell you such a thing. As a warning against the astrologers and those who read the future by the stars, and Christians will point to that and say, well, see, now there is astrology, and so God said to have nothing to do with astrology, reading the stars, because that's evil. But the fact of the matter is, if you've done your homework, you're going to find that the Bible is nothing more than astrotheology, the worship of God's heaven. Let me give you an example of how astrology permeates the Old Testament. In the book of John, in the New Testament, John 14:2, Jesus said, "In my Father's house are many mansions." Well, like many other scriptures in the King James, that was not correctly translated. In fact, it is not "in my Father's house are many mansions," because in fact that makes very little to no sense at all. How can you have houses or mansions in a house? "In my Father's house are many mansions" is correctly translated, "In my Father's abode are many dwelling places. In my Father's heavens are many houses." Well, of course, there's at least 12 houses in the heavens that we know of. In my Father's abode, the heavens, there are many houses. That's right, at least 12 houses of the zodiac. And in the book of Job, chapter 38:33, first, the scripture says, "Knowest thou the ordinances of heaven?" In other words, there are ordinances in heaven. And 31 now, going back to 38:31, God says to Job, according to the scripture, "Can thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion?" What are we talking about here? The Pleiades, an astrological symbol in the zodiac. And God is supposedly saying to Job, "Can thou bind the sweet influences?" What influences? I thought that that's all evil. That's all astrology. That's that New Age stuff. We don't have anything to do with that. And here God is saying to his prophet Job, "Can thou bind the sweet influences of the Pleiades or loose the bands of Orion? Can thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season?" Now there's a heavy piece of information. God is saying to Job in 38:32, "Can thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? Or can thou guide Arcturus with his sons?" We're talking astrology here. Now if you go to the King James Version, that's the version that God spoke. And if we read from the King James Bible what the word Mazzaroth means. Here in the King James, in the interpreting dictionary in the back of the King James, we look up the word Mazzaroth. And here we see Mazzaroth means the 12 signs of the zodiac.
So once we get into these levels, the dynamics of the way we're thinking about all of this change.
And Luke 10:22, in the book of Luke, Jesus is saying to his chosen 12, this is a symbolic story, and Jesus is saying to his chosen 12, they ask him, "Where are we to go now that we are going to celebrate the last Passover? Where are we to go?" And he says, "Go into the city, and you will see a man carrying a water pitcher. Go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. Well, anybody who has ever read anything about astrology knows that the house of the man with the water pitcher is a house of Aquarius. So every 2,000 years, and everyone has a different calculation. The Chinese say it's 2,150 years. The Egyptians said it was 2,125 years. The Sumerians said it was 2,100 and something years. So everybody's got a different calculation. That's why Jesus said, no man knows the day or the hour, only the Father who knows. But every 2,000 years, the sun enters a new constellation of the zodiac at the equator. If you go to the equator and look, stand right on the equator and look east, and when the sun rises, you will see a constellation of the zodiac. And for 2,100 years, the sun rises on that constellation. But you will see it at the beginning, it's over here. And for 2,100 years, the constellation keeps moving until it hits a point over here, and now it's leaving. And now the next constellation is coming in. So every 2,100 so years, the next constellation moves in. So God's Son is our risen Savior. He rises in the next constellation of one of his chosen 12. And so in Luke 10:22, he says, go into the house of the man with the water pitcher. What we're talking about is Jesus was the great fisherman, represented by the fish, because it's Pisces. We've been living in the age of Pisces for 2,000 years. So when we hear people today saying we're living in the end times, the last days, we are living in the end times, last days of Pisces.
One of the interesting things right now is that the astrological cycle, we're coming into a period of basically awakening is what they would say it. So the way to think about this is the sun is kicking off a lot of extra energy at this point.
There is no one alive today, or nearly alive today, who has experienced a down state of sunspot activity of the kind that we've been through in the last few years. This is why temperatures have been falling. This one is the so-called near solar minimum in January 2005 of sunspot activity, and this was the sun yesterday in terms of sunspot activity. Something's changing, and other things about the sun are not reacting as they normally would. But I suspect that when it starts again, and it will, we're going to see some dramatic activity in the sun. And that will impact upon not just the Earth's energy field, it will impact on our consciousness, our awareness, and things will start to speed up.
And that is having a dramatic impact on our planet. You've heard about climate change, obviously, but it's having an impact on the planet, and it may not just be like, oh, global warming, we're all going to die. There's actually a lot of good things coming out of this, too. And it's also having a massive impact on our psychology.
This new information construct coming out of the sun is symbolized by Neil Haig and myself as a lion. As the real human being, I symbolize as a lion also. And basically, these truth vibrations are going to dramatically, as we go through these next few years, dramatically affect human perception, human awareness, and human potential as this new information becomes decoded and the awareness potential expands and we access a greater part of all possibility. Another thing these truth vibrations are going to do and are doing is to break that wall, that line of troops on the left brain, and we're going to be accessing more and more of our right brain potential. So our creativity, our insight, our ability for what people would call genius today, it's not, it's the natural human state, is going to more and more expand. We're heading in for an incredible time. So as we are impacted by these truth vibrations, because we open ourselves to them, then we break out of these boxes. And these are the people who are not being touched by that yet, but my goodness me, I'm seeing people now change dramatically in no time. I was walking through where I was speaking in Santa Fe last year, and this guy walks past me. He'd flown in from Austin, Texas, and he said, 3 months ago, mate, I thought you were mad. Words to that effect. He said, now I get it. And he got it so quick, and we're going to see this happening. People changing dramatically, and also, as I understood 20 years ago, that all that's been hidden, the curtain is being pulled back. And we're in for some shocks. I mean, of course, what we've talked about today is shocking to most people who have seen the world in another way, but the shocks are going to go on, because what's been going on in this world behind the scenes is nothing like what we think it is. And these truth vibrations, this energetic change, this new epoch of enlightenment and expansion, and people call love and harmony and respect, connection, is going into these dark places, these structures that are held together by low vibrational density, and breaking them up.
This is the most ancient and the super religion that all religions are based on.
The whole concept of religion, words, terms, courts, government, financing, commerce is a massive, incredible story of how words and terms and symbols have been used for thousands of years, and 99% of the people on the face of the earth have no idea in the world how this stuff really works. But if you do your homework, you're going to find out that there were 3 separate gods in the Old Testament. 3 distinct and different gods being worshipped in the Old Testament. The first one was the stellar cult. The stellar cult worshipped the stars and connected themselves with God through the study of the stars. The stellar cult, a Semitic cult whose god was in the stars. Then there was the lunar cult, or the cult that worshipped God through the moon. And that's, of course, where the Hebrews come from. Their lineage is out of the lunar cult, or the Ptolemaic lunar cult, of which Moses was said to be the leader. And that's why, of course, in Hebrew, the days were always counted after sundown, because that's when the lunar god came out. The moon came up after sundown. And then, of course, there was Saturn, or the old Ugaritic god El. Saturn was infiltrated in the later days and becomes known as El, which is where we get Isis, Ra, El, I-S-R-A-E-L. Israel is Isis, Re, El, the Ugaritic god. Saturn. Saturn was referred to as, in the ancient world, the planet or the god Saturn was referred to as El. El, and from which we get the concept of the worship of El, or the worship of God.
The Elohim.
From Elohim.
Right.
Which, then once you are worshiping El, the concept is that you now have become an elder.
Oh.
Now, because you're an elder, how did you get to be an elder? You got elected.
Oh.
Yeah, and once you get elected, now you have become one of the elites, because you've become elected to be one of the elites. How did you get to be elected? With electricity. Wow. Because it's the juice, the flow, the
all
ebb
goes
and
back
flow.
to Saturn, you're saying.
It all goes back to the planet Saturn.
Now, are all the religions sort of conspiring together to maintain this control?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
But it's not a conscious thing. It's
No. It's just business, like the mafia says. There's nothing personal here. It's just business. You're going to corner the market, and the Catholic Church cornered the market and was killing people who didn't buy into their system in the Middle Ages. And it's still just a business today.
But let's talk about consciousness in a sense, because it's not people. There seems like to be a force that's beyond the human realm that's manipulating.
Well, of course.
Saturn, once upon a time, was anywhere but where it is now. And at the time, it had no rings. Actually, it was the dominant planet, I would say star, sun, in the Earth sky. And that was the dominant light, the dominant sun, if you like, from Earth in the Golden Age. And Plato referred to Saturn as Helios, the sun god. Not our sun that we see today, the Saturn sun, referred to as Helios. Now, we take Helios to mean our sun, because it's the sun god. I say that's a mistake. Actually, they were talking about Saturn. The creator of modern Christianity worshipped Sol Invictus, the unconquered sun. Sol, it turns out, was another name that was used for Saturn and not the sun we think we see today. So when you start to let it kind of filter through that at least most of the ancient sun gods were referring to the Saturn sun, not the sun we see today. That would make Heliopolis, famous city of the sun in ancient Egypt, as the city of Saturn, with the obelisks, the pillars outside the temple in Heliopolis. And that relates so closely to Solomon's temple, the mythical Solomon's temple. Every syllable of Solomon means the sun. Question now is which sun? And again, you've got the two pillars outside, just as with the one in Heliopolis. Then you come to Freemasonry, and its temples have the twin pillars worshipping the sun, the Saturn sun. Come to that as we go along. So when you go in this symbol, absolutely obsessed network, you come to the twin towers, the twin pillars. A coincidence? No chance. And what are the chances of this if that is the Saturn sun, Heliopolis? This obelisk in St. Peter's Square is an original obelisk put there from Heliopolis, I would say the city of the Saturn sun. And I've been saying for years and years and years and years that the Roman Church is worshipping Saturn. The Bennu bird of Heliopolis was symbolized as Atum Ra. Both symbolized Saturn. And the Bennu bird became the phoenix, which became the eagle, as Freemasonic historians talk about. They worship Saturn as the old sun, the dark lord, and the lord of the rings. Later, Satanism is Saturnism. And it's also symbolized as an eye. That appears to be what it looked like for most of the Earth Day at that time. And so you see symbols relating to that all over the ancient world, which Talbot came up with. Let's just go further forward here, I'll come to something else. There's loads of them, with the band and the disc Saturn. Loads of them like this, with symbolizes the horns with the planet, the sun in the middle of it. And Lord of the Rings was a name given to Saturn. And here you see in the movie, you see the same symbol and the eye of Sauron, the reptilian eye, as the source of power. They're using it now in Apple products as well. Here you have the man who started a satanic secret society in Germany called the Brotherhood of Saturn. And these are Saturn symbols, and there you see the round circle with the dot in the middle and the horns. Now that round circle with the dot in the middle is said today still to have been an ancient symbol of the sun. Well, there's nothing when you look at our sun to use a symbol like that to symbolize it. But you look at that symbol in relation to what Talbot's saying, and it's very obvious what it was symbolizing. You had an unbelievably Saturnesque stage show done at the Super Bowl in 2012 by Madonna with the luminous fiery eye again. And there is Saturn with the crescent between the Twin Towers in the Mother Lodge of Freemasonry in Great Queen Street in London. You look at the symbol of Islam, and it can be interpreted as the star and the crescent that was used in the ancient world. These laurel leaves symbols are very much in sympathy with that. This, of course, is the United Nations with the world as a target, very appropriate, and that is the symbol of the Windsors, the royal family, the Windsors royal family. That's, of course, an American great what do you call it? There's the flying disc, again, a Saturn symbol. You see that on many cars and in many areas of the corporate world. And of course, in that Saturnesque presentation, you had exactly that used in the Madonna stage show. Now this is why Satanists worship the goat. In one form, the goat god Pan. This is Manly P. Hall, Secret Teachings of All Ages, who is one of the major Freemasonic historians over the years. He said Pan was a composite creature, the upper part, with the exception of his horns, being human, and the lower part in the form of a goat. The god himself is a symbol of Saturn, because this planet is enthroned in Capricorn, whose emblem is a goat. And that is where that comes from, Baphomet, one of the most famous of satanic worshipping symbols. And you see them on this ring is Baphomet on Beyonce. She's dressed, Lady Gaga, as Baphomet. And there is Baroness Philippine de Rothschild with Baphomet massively round her neck. I am staggered, I don't believe it. The owl is Saturn, the owl of Bohemian Grove. Apis or Apis, the Egyptian Saturn god, the bull god, the god of Saturn. And that's where you get the golden calf and all that stuff. And again, you've got the money system symbolized as the bull as well. Now, I said earlier that numbers are just digital expressions of frequency waveform information fields. This is called the magic square of Saturn, and it's also the magic square of Freemasonry, of course. And why it's magic is whatever way you go and you add those numbers up, they come to 15. Don't matter which way you go. Now, in numerology, you add the numbers until you get a single number. So 15 in numerology is 666. 666. And that represents the energy frequency of Saturn, which I'll come to. Now, this is the sigil of Saturn, and they get it by drawing between the squares of the magic square from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. And that's how they get that. Now, if you turn that up on its side, you get that, which is what that is. The most obvious symbol of Freemasonry, because they're worshipping Saturn, which is an expression of this archontic fake reality. That is the symbol of Balmoral, the Scottish home of the royal family. Exactly the same, the sigil of Saturn. This is an ancient symbol of Saturn, the six-pointed star, the Star of David. It's not, they just hijacked that. It's a symbol of Saturn going way, way back. And this is where the name Rothschild came from. They had a red version of the six-pointed star on their house in Frankfurt, where the Rothschild dynasty came out of. And in German, red shield is Rothschild. The very name Rothschild comes from a symbol of Saturn. And they then took it and put it on their fiefdom of Israel. Saturn. Same with many law enforcement symbols. There it is as an ancient depiction of Saturn, six-pointed star and the moons. There's the six-pointed star on this necklace of the mysteries. And here it is again. And all of these are from Asia. It is not a unique Jewish symbol. The Rothschilds took it as a symbol of Saturn and put it as a Jewish symbol. No one is more manipulated by the Rothschilds than the Jewish people of the world. No one. And here you have it in Christianity, the six-pointed star, an old ex-pope. And there it is between the pillars in the Mother Lodge of Freemasonry in Great Queen Street in London. It's all Saturn. They're all pissing in the same pot, all of them. Now, another ancient symbol of Saturn is the black cube, which you see all over the place. And this is interesting. We're going to get in now into how this matrix actually works. This is a permanent hexagon storm in the North Pole of Saturn. It's 2 Earths wide, and it's going all the time, and it rotates exactly in sync with Saturn's radio emissions. And in geometry, the hexagon is also the six-pointed star and is also the cube. They are different expressions of the same energetic state. And so when you look at this is just a crop circle, but that's coincidental. You look at that crop circle and it's a hexagon, a flat hexagon. Look at it again, but see it three-dimensionally, even though it's exactly the same picture, and it becomes a cube. They are different expressions of the same energetic state. So a hexagon is also a cube, is also a six-pointed star in geometry. And therefore, this cube, the Kaaba at Mecca, is a symbol of Saturn, and that's what they're worshipping, though they don't realize it, though the inner circle will. The black cube that Jewish people put on their third eye as part of their ritual is Saturn. And when they worship at Mecca, they even make them sit in concentric bloody circles. They'll have them going round next. And so when they are doing their circling of that symbol of Saturn, that which is that frequency can feed off it. This is the symbol of Saturn in terms of astrology, and this is the symbol of the Soviet Union, which was created by the Rothschilds. The symbol of Saturn, the hammer and the sickle. The sickle become relevant shortly. In fact, now, this is the ancient Greek god of Saturn called Kronos, the bearded man, holding the scythe. And Kronos is Father Time with the scythe and the beard. Kronos, chronology, time, it's where it comes from. It's going somewhere. Saturn is the god of space and time, so it is said. Crown comes from Kronos, the god of Saturn in ancient Greece. The Grim Reaper is Saturn with the scythe, the death cult, exactly. Then you've got El and the Elohim. El is the Jewish god or the Hebrew god of Saturn. I would say El and the Elohim in the biblical realm is Demiurge and the archons. And you have archangels, Michael, Gabriel. The El goes all over the place. We have elections where the pawns are elected to serve the elite. We have Israel. And that is the symbol of El, the black cube. It's Saturn. The black sun, the dark lord, the demiurge, Saturn, Kronos, Satan, they're all different ways of saying the same thing. Then you have the bearded man. The god, he's always kind of symbolized with a beard. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from Kronos, the bearded man who is the god of Saturn. You see beards in religions all over the flipping place. And the beard comes from this symbolism of Saturn with the luminous crescent. And so we come to probably the most famous bearded man, the Saturn pattern. Well, hello from Rome. This guy comes from Rome and the worship of Saturn. This is Fritz Springmeier, a very accomplished researcher into all this. Saturn is an important key to understanding the long heritage this conspiracy has back to antiquity. The city of Rome was originally known as Saturnia, or the city of Saturn. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of the Saturn worship, hence Heliopolis obelisk, in its ritual. Saturn also relates to Lucifer in various occult dictionaries. Saturn is associated with evil. And Saturnalia, the 5th century Roman writer Theodosius said that Saturnalia, which was in Rome running up to our Christmas, was to mark the time when Saturn suddenly disappeared, which fits with that catastrophe story that Talbot talks about. So Saturnalia, that is the ruins of the temple of Saturn in Rome today, is actually Christmas. They decorated trees, they gave presents to each other, they used holly, same thing. And Santa is an anagram of Satan, Saturnalia, it's Kronos, the Saturn god. Now the bearded man is often used for Saturn. This is William Blake, who was a very deep thinker and knew a lot of inside information. And he painted this picture in 1794 called Ancient of Days. Ancient of Days is one of the phrases used in the Bible to describe God. And he depicts him as the architect. This is on the GE building in Rockefeller Plaza in New York. Again, the Ancient of Days, which I say is the demiurge Saturn, the architect. Freemasons call their God the great architect of the universe. The demiurge was called by the Gnostics the great architect of the universe. And in the Matrix, we had the architect creating the fake reality, the bearded man. And when you look at Saturn, the control system, it fits all the boxes of the society we live in. The religions, secret societies, and Satanism are worshipping Saturn. Astrologically, in other words, energetically, banking is astrologically ruled by Saturn. Politics and the institutions of state of all levels astrologically ruled by Saturn. Corporations astrologically ruled by Saturn. Law in the court system astrologically ruled by Saturn. Science astrologically ruled by Saturn.